everyone. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. Shayna and I are actually currently driving through Scotland. It's lovely. And I just wanted to give you an update on the week. It's been absolutely amazing. This isn't anywhere close to anything that we can access in the States. It's a totally different level of teaching, coaching, communication, and a much deeper understanding of horse physiology, human body makeup, how muscles relate to each other, how tendons relate to each other. It's extremely in-depth and extremely complex. So I'm going to cover a couple of the things that we touched on that I thought were really interesting. And again, I want to thank you all for supporting me on this adventure. This has been absolutely the most educational experience of my life so far, and I'm really excited about the next 2 weeks that we get to do. So this last week was all riding and finding parts of our body and how to understand how to communicate very, very, very subtly with the horses, using very specific parts of our body. So there's much less emphasis just on results, but a lot more emphasis on how to ask and how to be extremely specific and subtle in how you ask. And so that's been absolutely wonderful. So one of the first things that we learn about is core strength and core centeredness. And Mary Wanless calls this your bear down. And so that's understanding how your bear down influences your horse and connects your horse from back to front. So there's never any pulling, there's never any wiggling of the reins, there's never anything like that. It's all a push from back to front into what you call your bear down, which is something that's extremely complex and not something I can explain in a very short video. But I'll give you a little brief insight on that right now.
The get-go, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there it is right away. You know, it came back.
Yeah. So I mean, it is, you know, you as a rider with a lot of experience under your belt, it makes it so much easier to make changes. Or let's put it this way: if I get a really experienced rider who's willing to play with me, yeah, we can make changes so much more easily. Right knee, heel down through your right thigh, land on the front triangle. And feeling how your bear down can reach his head and neck a bit more out of the willow, that's right. And be careful, because every time you sit, you'd love to lift your right knee and lift your right heel and do a little kick. That's a good fix. Okay? And that's much better. So your right side there was definitely going wrong from the bottom upwards. Yeah?
Okay, so now that we did a little bit about bear down, oh, that's pretty. Alright, now that we did a little bit on bear down, and I'm really excited to talk more about that and explain that really thoroughly in the workshop that I'm going to do when I get back. One of the ways that you can learn more about how to sit and how to think about sitting is through simulators and sensors. And so those are really heavily emphasized here, and we actually are going to have a couple different types of simulators. So one of the simulator lessons that we did was on a simulator horse, and this measured how much movement that you have side to side, how much movement you have front to back, and how much movement you have up and down. So, for example, somebody who perhaps has a poor sitting trot, their weight can be amplified quite a lot on the down part. And so your goal is to have very little up and down movement. And so we did a little bit on that, and I have some video of that. Another thing that we did on that is practice keeping very still and sitting correctly with good biomechanics and breathing in and out with a balloon, so that we're breathing from the deep part of our core, not breathing through our chest, which constantly changes our balance. So here's a little video on that.
So have your feet flat. That's that when your thumbs bent. That's good. All right. Start and trot. Okay, so he goes up and then he starts moving backwards and forwards.
Okay.
Now you've got a little bit of a hollow in your back. That's it. That was a good adjustment.
Can you keep thighs on really tight? And roll the thighs inward. And then take yourself back into your back again. So that's better. Okay. So how are you doing with your seat bones? What's your, oh, okay.
Okay, so then another simulator sensor exercise that we did is where we wear these Equisense bike shorts and sit on a saddle, and it measures exactly how your weight is distributed from left to right and front to back, and it's quite sensitive, and so you don't really realize how you are sitting until you have these sensors on you that tell you you're sitting left, you're sitting right, you're sitting front, you're sitting back, and it's really sensitive. And so I did that, and I was able to find my left right really quickly, and it's really wonderful because then you look, you figure out exactly how to access that centeredness and practice it on a saddle that's just sitting on a saddle stand. So that's really great. I'm gonna look into actually renting a pair of these shorts so that I can bring those back to Iowa, so that would be great. So that's another thing that we did. I don't actually have any video of that because everybody's doing other things during that time. These days are extremely intense. They're solid 8 hours, and we're very busy the whole time doing different activities, classroom, riding, etc. So one of the two things that I worked on towards the end of the week was, first of all, when I sit more forward on the pelvis. And so in order to understand that, you have to actually understand the anatomy of the pelvis very carefully. And Mary has the most amazing eye to be able to see exactly how you're sitting and how you need to change it in order to be what we call downness. And so that means that there's absolutely very, very little up and down motion in your trot. In order to evaluate this, we do a lot of video work. So she'll video us and then we analyze the video afterwards, which is extremely helpful, and I'm going to incorporate that so much more into my work at home with my students, because it's so valuable to see exactly what you're doing. And so here's a little bit of my lesson on downness, and what I was doing is trying to find how I can sit more on my, they're called rami, and so sitting more on that part of the pelvis to have a more downness feeling, and it was extremely helpful.
Best off to walk and start again. Even if you just go trot, walk, trot, you know, just give yourself enough time to settle onto it, to organize it, and then start from sitting. Because your best steps are going to be the first couple of steps of trot.
Right, okay.
Right? So you can, you know, when you get home, you can use this as trot, walk, trot means you're doing training stuff for your horse rather than just going round and round. And at the same time, you're giving yourself lots of start-offs where it's most easy to pull down.
Okay.
This is better. Okay? When you walk, can you stay? I hit slow-mo. But actually, I think you're doing pretty well. That in slow-mo, you can see a little bit of up-down, but it's not massive by any manner of means. Yeah? And this is the side where you're more easily down.
Yeah.
Yeah? So your left side does stay down more easily than your right. And I didn't at any point say to you today, now go wrong, which I really should have done to get the go right, go wrong contrast. Yeah? So that I didn't do. This could go on for a very long time. I think we might try and speed it a little bit. So this is closer to normal speed. Right? And you're staying on the rami well. You're not toppling back.
Okay, so we're in the, is it the Kingdom of Fife? Village of Fife? Kingdom of Fife. Okay, and this is the road we're on, and we encounter vans and things. Alright, so another thing that we work on is on seat bones, and it's not just about evenness of seat bones. It's much more in depth than that. So it's about placement of seat bones in relation to the horse's spine and being able to influence the horse's spine. Wow, that was really close. With your seat bones being narrow, and so working on how to narrow your seat bones without letting them come off the horse's back. So this is really, really tricky, and it takes a lot of practice. So this is essential for any type of lateral movement, and was something that I was working on in my lesson. And so here's a little bit of that.
Do you have 2 seat bones? So did that mean no?
Yeah, first they meant no.
Which one was missing? So if one went missing, which one would it be?
My left leg bouncing back and forth like.
Okay, so let's walk a minute.
Yeah.
So
Alright, so that's a little bit of that. Now, one other thing that we worked on, and this is going to be the last thing I talk to you guys about, is the idea of suctioning up the horse's back, especially in the canter. And so I'm riding Keat, and he is a very nice Lusitano gelding, and he tends to get a rather tense canter, as a lot of Lusitanos do. And so the suctioning up of creation of collection, that's very upward bound and not backwards. And so everything is very much a back to front, and then this is very much being able to influence the horse to come more up in the canter with just your seat. And so again, something that's extremely hard to explain, and I'll touch more on it in the workshop, but here's a little bit of snippet of me working on that.
switch on a little bit. But the big deal is the suctioning up, like bouncing the ball. Can you suction up on each up down? Good. Good. Moving your collarbone forward as you suction up. Well done. Good. So you could play with some mini length shortens, yeah? So not medium canter, but just kind of go a little bit on the circle. And can you do that thinking about not letting your seat bones shove forward? Okay, and as you come back towards technique canter, you're going to think suction up. Good. And your seat bones actually get to go to the back. As his mane flies up, your seat bones go back. Yeah, collarbone forward.
Alright, so that's a little bit of a recap of this week. Thank you guys again so much for supporting me in this trip. I'll keep updating you as much as I can. And so this week we're going to be doing teacher training, which means that we will be learning how to teach all these concepts in a very deconstructed and specific way, which I think is so valuable. So we learn a lot about teaching philosophy, about how the mind works, how learning works, and how learning works for different people. And so this is just an incredibly well-rounded course, and I'm so lucky to be able to be here. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to bring all this back to you. Bye!